of all people that I find myself bizarrely agreeing with these days, Adam Schiff nails it. Here he is on MSNBC with the message that justice delayed too long is justice denied. And I agree.
All right, welcome back to Velshi. I want to get right to our next guest, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. He's a senior member of the House Judiciary Committee. He's a former member of the January 6th committee. He was the lead impeachment manager during President Donald Trump's first impeachment in 2020. And he's been a leading voice against, been a leading voice on a lot of things. I want to introduce Representative Schiff. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Good to see you.
We have a lot to get through. The first is that we are waiting to hear about what's happening with this Manhattan grand jury investigation. We know that Michael Cohen is going to speak to the grand jury tomorrow. He's met with the Manhattan DA many times. People are wondering whether something will happen, but it's not the shoe that everybody's waiting.
Before we jump too far into that, I just found out that Velshi also got his start on Al Jazeera. Was anybody else aware of that? I thought he was a local news guy that made his way up to MSNBC. I'm a little bit bummed, frankly, but I do think it's kind of adorable that he and Mehdi Hassan worked together before they were both on MSNBC. But I thought he was a local newsman. Oh well.
To see drop with respect to Donald Trump. They're more interested in the January 6th stuff, the Georgia election conversations, maybe even the documents. What's your sense of where we are in the accountability of Donald Trump?
Yeah, first of all, in light of your last story, I want to, send my thoughts out to my fellow Californians who are underwater right now and want to make sure they get all the help that they need to rebuild. In terms of where we are in holding Donald Trump and his enablers accountable, Ali, I think you're absolutely right. This hush money scheme is important, but the most important is his role in trying to stop the transfer of power and the violent insurrection in the multiple lines of effort to overturn our election. I take my hat off to the Manhattan DA finally for moving on what he's moving on. It does beg a question, though, Ali, of why the Justice Department never moved on this. They prosecuted Michael Cohen in a scheme that the indictment said involved an individual number one who coordinated and directed that hush money scheme. They said Michael Cohen had to go to jail for his role in that. So what's the argument that the guy who directed and coordinated the scheme gets a pass? So if Manhattan goes forward, it will beg the question why the Justice Department didn't. And the broader question is, why has the Justice Department taken so long with respect to January 6th?
Look, I'm going to choose to ignore my own analytics here and believe that Adam Schiff has been watching What You Can Do. That's it, my friend. That is exactly what we've been asking. If the state-level folks could pursue these charges, what the hell was stopping the federal folks from doing the same? Nothing is the answer. It's a rhetorical question. The answer is, to my knowledge, nothing. I have to leave the window open. It's possible there is a grand strategy that I simply can't see with my silly civilian eyes. But come on. The harm has been done in a lot of cases. And I just like statute of limitations passing on some of these crimes. And I just can't. I find it hard to believe that in the country where we let Ronald Reagan, Nixon, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush get away with just horrific crimes in office, that suddenly the Justice Department was going to change its tune and take Trump seriously. I find that very difficult. What changed, from my perspective, was the patience of the American people. And you should feel, by the way, proud of yourself for being part of the generation that said enough is enough with this criminal behavior in office. We will not put up with it anymore. But we now have a Justice Department which is scrambling to try to actually make good on what it's there for, because it's never had to do that before. That said, the one point I want to just argue with a little bit about how they introduced that was holding some crimes is more important than the other. No. You, Justice Department, Merrick Garland, I'm assuming you watch this regularly as well, despite my constant insults. Merrick Garland, you get him on whatever you can get him on. We don't care if it's tax evasion and then the coup. We don't care if it's selling or taking illegally information from Fox and then tax dodging and then the coup. Whatever. All you should care about, did the guy do the thing? Was the thing illegal? That's it. Soon as you can, first charges. Then worry about the second charges. Then worry about the third, the fourth, the fifth. But hold the man accountable. Hold Donald Trump accountable for the crimes he did. It shouldn't be difficult. He did most of them that we're aware of publicly. Christ.
Why was Congress able to move with more speed and more thoroughness in terms of investigating the former president's misconduct? I hope we're going to see some changes there. It does look like the special counsel in the January 6th investigation is nearing the end of that investigation, at least judging by the high-level witnesses he's trying to bring in. But they were very slow to get to this point.
Yeah, and I guess there are differences in an impeachment procedure and in the January 6th committee and in the way evidence is gathered and cross-examination.
Yeah, but not that much.
But the January 6th committee did do a lot of work on this. The impeachment did do a lot of work on this. And I guess a number of people are saying, we understand we don't want this to feel political because Donald Trump makes everything political all the time. But the clock is ticking. Donald Trump is at the moment a presidential candidate. Donald Trump still has a lot of supporters. And last week he declared himself everyone's justice and retribution, whatever that means.
You're absolutely right, Ali. It's a different process in Congress, but generally that process is so much slower than the Justice Department. For example, when we tried to enforce our subpoenas to bring in witnesses in the January 6th investigation, we couldn't enforce them ourselves. We had to go to the Justice Department to enforce them for us, and they only proceeded with 2 of the 4 we referred. When you basically tell the Justice Department, as opposed to Congress, you're not showing up, you're going to jail. So they can enforce their subpoenas with much greater speed and effectiveness than we can. So the differences between the Congress and the Justice Department is they should have been able to move a lot faster than us. But
remember, he just said the Justice Department should have been able to move a lot faster than us. Adam Schiff is describing the January 6th committee, which was formed, did its investigation, and recommended charges already. Where's that Justice Department? Still the Justice Department is crawling along the path to do this, if they even have plans to charge Trump at all. We shouldn't be left wondering, the American people shouldn't be left wondering if our Justice Department is going to seek justice on our behalf. We literally don't know if that's their intention. It's a disgrace, and it tells Republicans what they can get away with. Right now, the GOP is looking at this and saying, fascism is a genuine option in the United States. All we have to do is be slightly more subtle than Donald Trump about it, and there wouldn't be this outcry. All we have to do is not say in a recorded phone call X or Y. All we have to do is make slight tweaks, and we can still subvert the will of the American people. I say Republicans because this is a party that knows it is shrinking every day. It already relies on gerrymandering to survive. See what happened in Michigan in 2018 when we ungerrymandered the state. And look at that. Turns out the state votes overwhelmingly Democratic. They already rely on gerrymandering to survive. They already rely on the Electoral College for the presidency. They already rely on unfairness by written into the law, of course the next thing they're going to go to is unfairness that's not written into the law, but simply that they can get away with. Of course that's where they're going, and of course that's what they're going to try to do, unless there is consequences for breaking the laws we do have.
Faster than us, but again, we'll see where that takes us now. I do think that we ought to be learning fairly soon what decisions they're making, and you're right. They need to avoid any political perception to the maximum degree possible. But if they give a kind of de facto immunity to the former president because they want to even avoid any appearance of impropriety, then they are being political. They're giving the president a pass. They're not following what the Attorney General promised at the outset of the investigation, which is that they would follow the evidence wherever it leads, because the evidence has led to Donald Trump.
What do you think is likely to happen? Where is this justice likely to come from the most? I know we're watching Jack Smith and watching what the Attorney General does, but there is a completely separate investigation going on in Georgia that we're getting dribs and drabs out of that look like at least indictments maybe recommended for some people. Is that going to be meaningful?
I think Georgia could be very meaningful, and the Georgia District Attorney has a lot of guts, has a lot of courage, and moved, I think, with very thorough investigation.
So, I was really hoping Ali Velshi would have jumped on that. Adam Schiff said the excuse they're using is to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. And then he goes on to say, but if they give Donald Trump a pass because he is a politician, that is also impropriety. Yes, the appearance of impropriety should also include being overly generous to politicians, to refusing to say that they are investigating a politician if they are. Why? Because they wouldn't have treated somebody who's not a politician the same way. That in and of itself is impropriety. We've already had impropriety, not just the appearance of, the actual fact of impropriety. We have already had politicians getting treated with kid gloves because of the job they do. That alone is enough to say, you're out, Garland. You were supposed to be non-political. That doesn't mean kind to politicians. It means politics should be irrelevant to what you do. Guy's got to go.
With a very thorough investigation. I chose to conduct the January 6th hearing around Georgia. Brought in Brad Raffensperger and others to testify, Shay Moss and others. Because to me, in that case, that line of effort to overturn the election where you have Donald Trump on the phone with the Secretary of State demanding 11,780 votes that don't exist, making fraud claims that his own Attorney General had told him were BS. You don't have to wonder, what did the president know and when did he know it? He's on the phone. You can hear his voice. That's very powerful and damning evidence. So we'll see whether what the grand jury four-person in the investigative grand jury was alluding to, whether that was correct or not. And I would hope that the new grand jury, a criminal grand jury, would be able to use summaries of the evidence presented to the investigative one and not have to repeat all that work.
Michael Popak calls it a press and play case, and I'm inclined to believe him.
So that we can get to justice, because as we know, ultimately, when justice is denied for too long, when it's delayed for too long, it ends up being denied.
What about what happened last weekend?
Yeah, wholeheartedly agreed. Justice delayed for too long does indeed become justice denied. I've been saying it since the beginning. This is the pattern used to give politicians a pass constantly. We always hear, well, we're going to investigate this, but listen, this is a serious thing. We're taking this seriously. So because we're taking it seriously, it's going to take a long time. Years of silence go by, and then eventually, some lefty whose hair has turned gray in the meantime says, whatever happened to Iran-Contra? Whatever happened to the Chenault affair? Whatever did happen to Bush lying about us going into war with Iraq? And we hear, well, look, the investigation petered out because this or that. Nonsense. There was never any interest in holding the powerful accountable. And as always, the American people were asked to be patient until we forgot about it. That's what happens every single time. That is what I believe was attempted here. Treat this new tragedy like we treated the old tragedies and hold no one accountable. No one that anyone will remember. It's a pretty straight path for what you can do. Tell the DOJ, first and foremost, no matter what state you live in, there's a link in the description. Tell the DOJ you expect charges filed against Trump this year. Next year's election year, if we're going to be honest about giving the Republicans a chance to field a president, field a candidate for president, we can't have them going into this with the impression that no charges are coming against Trump. We expect charges filed by the Department of Justice at the federal level this year. And there's more you can do. If you live in a fake elector state, which is Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, it's also Georgia and Michigan, but those have already filed charges. If you live in a fake elector state that has not started a state-level investigation, contact your attorney general. Links are in the description. I've provided a script if you need help with the words. The script says, AG Merrick Garland has had years to put together a case against those who tried to deny my vote in 2020, and yet he let the 2022 election pass without filing charges. He has been unwilling or unable to hold accountable those who were responsible. As your constituent, Attorney General, I want you to protect my vote by opening a state investigation into the false elector plot. I'll tell you, Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays has said she's considering it. That means it is a great time if you live in Arizona to write her and say, don't just consider it, do it. We haven't heard peep one from Raul Torres in New Mexico, Aaron Ford in Nevada, Michelle Henry in Pennsylvania, or Josh Call in Wisconsin. We haven't heard from them. Well, I think it's about time we do. Write them. Tell them you expect charges filed at the state level, because Merrick Garland isn't going to go after everybody he possibly can. He's going to go after as few people as he can, which means you are going to be left with members of the Republican Party in your state that participated in this plot and are not pursued by the law, unless you can get your state attorney general going after him now. Put the pressure on them. One of the main things Dana Nessel said was her reason for opening a state investigation into the fake electors plot was that she had pressure from her constituents. She had to answer to Michiganders who were saying, what the F is going on? Why is our vote not protected? Why does nobody seem to be interested in pursuing these electors? Because of that, she said, she opened a state-level investigation. In our poll that we did over the weekend to ask, who do you think is going to be first to indict Donald Trump? Jack Smith did not win. Alvin Bragg in New York won, a state-level district attorney. It should tell you that the power of the states is not to be underestimated. Oh, and by the way, state charges cannot get a pardon from a weak-willed Democratic president or a corrupt Republican president. we should bear that in mind as well. Let's have a look at these here. Oh, Lauren St. Laurent says, I thought Ali Velshi was Canadian for some reason. Yeah, he does give a very Canadian vibe. I don't know. I don't know where he's from initially. I know, obviously, very little about his background before MSNBC. That's just when I first saw the guy. But it wouldn't surprise me to find out that he was simultaneously working for Al Jazeera and living in Canada or something like that. He just has that vibe for sure. Well, I had a hoot today. I hope you did as well. If you enjoy the show, by the way, it would help me a great deal if you drop a like on the stream. Consider sharing it with your friends and subscribe if you're not already. Your old pal Jake loves doing this, telling you what you can do about these issues in the news. And the more people we have on board, the more we can do. Give it a thought. I will begin chopping this up. And I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's a 2 for Tuesday, which means we have 2 of these streams. Oh, baby. Hope you like them. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake.